Welcome to the Torah Perspective, first time in Sefer Vayikra. Of course, we're already one Seder into the Sefer, Seder Vayikra last week, Shabbos Zohar, and now we're coming to Parshas Tzav. And at this moment, we need to take a step back and look at Sefer B'Midbar, at Sefer Vayikra. A Sefer, one of our 5 Chumashim, usually in English called Leviticus, or in Hebrew it has 2 names. It's on the one hand we call it Sefer Vayikra after the first Seder. We call it Torah's Kahanim. And Torah's Kahanim is of course the origin of the word Leviticus, the book of the Levites, meaning the Kahanim. Anyway, the main topic of the Sefer is the divine service, and especially in the first couple of Seders. Vayikra was a list or an enumeration of the various types of korbanos, the various types of offerings. And this week it talks in the beginning of the Seder about the procedure that follows the offerings, because the offerings were burnt on the Mizbeach, were burnt on the altar. Big misunderstanding on what an altar is. People think, when they think of an altar, that korbanos, offerings, were slaughtered on the Mizbeach. That is of course not the case. The Mizbeach is not the place where you slaughter a korban. There's one single exception. Anybody can think of an exception? I'll tell you, it's the Akedah. With the Akedah, Yitzchak was put al ho'etzim, on the firewood of the Mizbeach. And that sets it apart, actually, as a pagan offering. An offering in the pagan style. And this is exactly what Avraham had to learn in the Akedah, that such an offering is not required, it is not demanded, and our law, a burnt offering or something that goes up, an our law is something that goes up, is something else. Ha'aleu shom la'or, bring him up there as an our law, has 2 interpretations in the Akedah. You can hear it in 2 different ways. Elevate him there, or burn him there as an offering. Right? Because the essential meaning of an olah is something that goes up. Right? Now, I've often wondered how to even begin to understand animal offerings, right? Let's be honest, if you look at Sefer Vayikra and all the animals that are being offered up, it looks like an abattoir. It's a slaughterhouse. And believe you me, if you would come to the Beis HaMikdash in full working order, you would have a big meat processing facility, right? That's what's going on physically. But this is the Beis HaMikdash. This is the Holy Temple. This is the divine service. We have not a beginning of understanding how to relate this interaction with animal life, right? Disruptive interaction, I may add. It ends the life of the animal. What this has to do with the divine service. Why? This is called avodah. And in fact, Chazal tell us that Bazman Hazeh, now that we do not have a temple, avodah means avodah shebalev. It means the service of the heart, meaning tefillah, davening, praying, prayer. That's called avodah. Many a siddur is called avodas Yisrael, or avodah this, or avodah that. That's our avodah. Avodah literally means work or a task, something that you are charged with. Okay. So we have to somehow find our way through this whole complex of aspects, the animal life, the notion of bringing something up, an olah, and then the generic word for korban is korban, a means of coming close, right? A means of coming close. Now, one way of understanding it, I have sometimes thought is that if you look at animal life, and we as human beings are, for better or for worse, of animal origin. We are, as the Torah says, that we were lenefesh chayo, we became a nefesh chayo. Nefesh chayo is an expression that's being used for animals. Before it's ever used for human beings, it's used 4 times in Parshas Bereshis for an animal, right? So when it says vayipach ba'apov nishmas chayim, he breathed in his nostrils the breath of life. Vayihi ha'odom lenefesh chayo, a man became a nefesh chayo, a living soul. It is, you can almost read it as despite the fact that man was a living soul, that he was an animal soul, nevertheless he had in his nostrils a nishmas chayim, the Targum actually has a slightly different twist on that passage. It doesn't say Vayihi ha'odom lenefesh chayo in the Targum. It says Vahavas be'odom lenefesh chayo, and the nishmas chayim, leruach memalalo. And let's say it again. Vahavas ba'odom leruach memalalo. And it became in man a speaking, or a ruach, a direction giver, an inspiration, a propagator of memalalo, that can verbalize things, that can say things, right? So what became this ruach memalalo? What became this speaking spirit? Not man, it became in man. What became in man? The nishmas chayim, the breath of life. The breath of life took in man the form of his ability to verbalize things and thereby to reason out things, to work with language. Language as the basis of our ability to self-reflection, self-imaging, having an internal model of ourselves against which we can test our actual performance, and therefore our time horizon by which we can plan goes forward. There's not an animal that thinks of tomorrow, right? But an animal can think of the next 15 minutes. How do I escape that predator that is chasing me, that is planning ahead? But man can plan ahead far further. Why? Because he has an internal model of his world that he can give names, that he can give handles, and thereby manipulate it in his mind and work on a hypothesis and think, how will this work out? That's the ability of man to verbalize things. That's the gift of language. But it's not just language that we use for communication. Everything that we do is a form of language. More and more we discover that language, large language models can learn technology, can learn all kinds of understandings by the ability to give things names. Man also gave names. Man gave names to the animal world. Man made the animal world also an object of his own planning and his own deliberation. Now, right from the beginning, the Torah describes offerings, seeking connection with the Almighty in the form of a korban, right? Cain and Hevel, you know the story, it started already with the korban. Noah, when he comes out of the table, he brings korbanot, he brings offerings. Animals, the Rabbiner Hirsch has large explanations on Sefer Vayikra. And when you have chumoshim on your shelf, and you have a chumash with some commentary, let's say the Netziv, you know, or the Hamekdover, or you have Meshech Chochma, or whatever it is, and you look at the size of the volumes, you see Bereshis, there's a big volume, And then Shemos is a big volume. Then comes Vayikra, it's a very thin volume. And then the Midbar, with all the stories about the Midbar, again big. And then Devorim is again big. With Rabbi Hirsch, it's exactly the opposite. His fattest volume is Vayikra. That's where he goes to town. He wants to understand what are these korbanos all about. And he constantly says, this animal symbolizes this, and this animal symbolizes that. And the animals, for the Rabbi Hirsch, are personifications of certain abilities, of certain competencies that get the form of an animal. And of course, that was in the pagan world also. The animals were a personification of certain kochot, certain powers, certain tendencies and certain abilities, competencies.
So not midot.
Not necessarily midot, but midot characteristics come into it, definitely. Like the Rabbi Hirsch emphasizes that the sheep is the follower and a ram is a initiative taker and an ox is a work animal. He has these characterizations. Anyway, the problem with animals is that the form of their control over themselves is limited. It's exquisite there where it exists. Animals are very, very, when an animal is being clever, an animal can be very clever. Even an octopus, we have discovered quite recently, are quite intelligent animals, with planning and all kinds of things. But an animal does not manipulate his self-image. He doesn't project himself into the future and speculate, what can I become? An animal is purely concerned with how can I stay what I am? How can I give permanence to my life long enough to have a litter and to make sure that my line doesn't die up? We are different. We have aspirations to become something. We are Hayos Ha'odom, the becoming of man. Man is a project that is an unfinished job. Man still has to become. You want to control this in an animal? You want to really have a grip on what the animal can do? You have to kill it. That's how you get the animal under your total control. If not, the animal has its own objectives, and there is no such thing really as a tame animal, right? The animals that we tame, the domesticated animals, are not really domesticated. They live in the symbiosis with us. We are as much their servant in this relationship as they are our servant, right? Somebody once made a joke that man is the way in which grass has spread over the world. Man is we are the parasite, or we are the symbiote, and the grass is really the boss, right? If you look at urban London, you sometimes get the impression that we are there to serve the foxes, right? Because urban London has become more of a habitat for foxes than for human beings. I'm making only half a joke. Anyway, this is the image of the killing of the animal. How this relates to the physical killing of the animal, we cannot, in our present situation, possibly intuit. We just don't have the tools available. That's a reflection of our own spiritual state, that we cannot make this connection right from the physical world of gore and blood and slaughter to this spiritual interpretation. And I put these words physical and spiritual in scare quotes because I don't believe in that strict dichotomy. It doesn't exist. It's a continuum. But we cannot see this continuum. And that is a function of our own spiritual status. We are simply not there, or rather, we have lost it with the Chorban. We have lost it when we lost the temple. That's the real loss. not the building. It is the loss of this world in which this connection existed. By the way, this brings us back to Purim. What was the reason why Achashverosh had a big meal of 180 days? What was the celebration all about? Well, Chazal tell us he was celebrating that he had made a calculation that the Golus should last 70 years and then the Beis HaMikdash should be rebuilt. And the 70 years were passed in his calculation, and therefore he was now assured we have gotten rid of this Beis HaMikdash. We have gotten rid of this idea of bringing the presence of the Creator into the world. That is gone now. I now can truly be king. And it's being elaborated, especially in Targum Sheni, that he had a replica made of the throne of David and Shlomo, where the lions that were on the throne were actual real lions. And he really wanted to set up the real throne, but the lions were attacking him. Therefore he made fake lions. And he made a whole fake throne. The whole story of Achashverosh is that he thinks he controls the world. He thinks he controls the world. He has no idea that there is a hidden side of the world, and it's right next to him. It's his own queen, who's called Esther, meaning I am hidden. Right? I am hidden. Esther means I hide myself. You can also see it in the fact that Achashverosh ruled over 127 provinces. Right? If you take the word melech, a mem, a kaf, and a chaf, and you spell out the letters, mem with a mem, and then a lamet, mem, and a dalet, and then a kaf and a pei, you add it all up, you get to 254. 127 is only half of it. He was a half king. He was a king over what he could see. He was not a king over what he could not see. Right? The same Targum Sheni makes a very, very fine comment, fine in the sense of subtle. It says that he reigned Mihoda Bad Kush, from India until Ethiopia, as if that those are the two ends of the world, right? And then the Targum Sheni adds to that, and Shlomo Melech reigned over a very small territory, but was master over the entire world. It depends on what you are master of. It doesn't depend on the extent of your rule, how far your word reaches. It depends on how deep your word reaches. Anyway, this is the half world of Shlomo Melech. Shlomo Melech, by the way, was also known of understanding the language of the animals. He had this knowledge of the animal world. This is called Chochmas Shlomo. Chochmas Shlomo is also known as the Chochmas Tator, the lower wisdom, the wisdom of the lower world, as opposed to the Chochmas Iloh, the wisdom of the higher worlds. And these, in Kabbalistic terms, the two forms of wisdom are symbolized by the two Yudin, out of which the letter Aleph is built. The letter Aleph is a Vav in the middle and a Yud above and a Yud below. And that Yud together are the two forms of wisdom. One is the higher wisdom, one is the lower wisdom. The Vav, the letter Vav, means both a connector, the Vav ha-chibur, and the Vav ha-hipuch. It is both a connector and a contraster. This is what and can do. And can be and therefore also that, or that, and despite that also that. That's also, in Hebrew there is no difference between the two. It's both called ve. That's why when you read a Hebrew sentence, you should, biblical Hebrew, you should always, and you come across that vav, do not always translate it and. Sometimes it means but. And sometimes it means because.
We have that in English.
We have it in English as well.
Conjunctive and disjunctive.
Yes, we have it. But we have special words also. We have the word but to make the contrast. Hebrew lacks that. Elo is a very rare word in biblical Hebrew. Avol is totally different. Avol means making an objection, right? It's related to Baal. Baal is another word for not, right? Avol. Anyway, so you have this higher wisdom, you have the lower wisdom. The yud above is 10, the yud below is 10, and the vav is a 6, right? Together they're in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Together they're yud k vav k, all in the letter aleph, all, right? To tell you that the prime principle is by this vav of contrast and connection, mirroring the higher world and the lower world, so that there are two images of each other. Therefore, they're both called Chokhmah, the same Chokhmah, but that's the Chokhmah applied below, and that's the Chokhmah applied above. And our job is to be that vav in between. Our job is to make sure we can make this connection. The Mizbeach is all about connection. The Mizbeach is all about connection. The Gemara talks about the Avodah, the divine service with the Karbonos, in terms of Achilas HaMizbeach, the eating of the altar. And anybody with a grain of salt as a brain will immediately ask the question, what do you mean? The Mizbeach has to eat? The Creator is hungry? He needs feeding? We also call it Shulchan Gavara, the table of the Most High, Shulchan Gavara. And the enigma is solved, I think, by realizing that our food is also not what we think it is. Our food is not to feed our body. Our bodies do not need food. They do extremely well without food. It needs a bit of embalming, but it can last for a long time. Longer than our life usually lasts. Right? So bodies don't need it. You go to Enfield, you go to Bushi, there are plenty of bodies there, and there's no food around. Spirits, neshamas, do not need food. They are doing perfectly well without food. What needs food is the connection between the two. Is to keep the body and the soul, if you want to make that distinction between body and soul, together. That's what food is. Already in the letters of the word eating, ochal, the echal, is a aleph, a kaf, and a lamed. A kaf and a lamed means kol, everything. The aleph is the Most High. To keep everything into contact with the Most High, that is the job of eating. Achilas HaMizbeach does exactly the same thing. Achilas HaMizbeach maintains the link between the below and the above. No wonder, therefore, that Jerusalem, as the only place where you can have a Beis HaMikdash, is always told, we are always told that there are two forms of Jerusalem. There's Jerusalem shel mato, and there's Jerusalem shel malo. There is a Jerusalem in the higher spheres. Don't picture clouds and things like that. No. It means in the higher spheres there's also this notion of Jerusalem where God will be seen. That's what Jerusalem means. Yeah, Bahar Hashem Yeroeh. That connection between making that visible in this world and making it visible in the higher worlds, that is called avodah. Now, this week's Seder at the beginning speaks about what to do by night. What to do by night. You can't bring korbanos by night. You can't bring offerings by night. But what you do by night is burn the emorim, the various body parts that need to be burnt, even when there are parts of the korban that are eaten by the kohanim, for example, the chatos, or that are eaten by non-kohanim in Jerusalem, like shlomim. And nevertheless, there are certain parts that need to be burnt on the Mizbeach. The chelef has to be burnt, and the innards have to be burnt. and they are burnt on. That is what happens on the Mizbeach. That is the Olah part of the korban. An Olah is a korban that in its totality is being burnt. So it goes up. If you want to, it's spiritualized. If you want to, you can interpret it that way. And there are leftovers, ashes. And to gather the ashes together in itself is an avodah. It's called Terumas Hadeshen, and in the beginning of the Seder it speaks about the Kohanim have to change their clothes, and when they do this Terumas Hadeshen, they make a heap on the side of the Mizbeach, and after that they take it to outside the basic mikdash El Mokam Torah, to a place which is pure, which is Torah. The leftovers of our avodah are not to be discarded just like that. Right? When you receive a package from Amazon, it comes in all kinds of packages, and you cut it open with a box cutter. No modern household is complete without a box cutter to open Amazon boxes, because otherwise you can't. And then after you take the stuff that you ordered, you take it out, and then the rest goes with the rubbish. Not so in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. There is no rubbish there. Every leftover has a function, because nothing goes to waste, because it's all his world. So that's the symbolism of the Terumas Hadeshen. Now, this needs to be done by night, or rather, as a result of the burning of the offerings during the night. In the morning, first thing in the morning, is this Terumas Hadeshen service. Rabbi Hirsch points it out, there is a difference in what day and night are in the world around us and in the Beis HaMikdash. It's a difference. We know that in the world around us, the night precedes the day. Vayi Erev, Vayi Voker. In the Beis HaMikdash, it's the other way around. The night in the Beis HaMikdash follows the day. You can see it in korbanos that can be eaten by day and then by night until Chatzos, as an extension of the time that they can be eaten. And Shlomi, for example, can be eaten until Chatzos. Machlokas, some say it can be, and then there are korbanos that can be eaten even the day afterwards. But the night following is included, right? Because the night is the result of the day. The night is the result. How do I explain this? The night is the time that there is no light, that there is no visible indication of the progress of time, right? During the day, you see the movement of the sun, and the sun rises and the sun sets, and it reaches the highest point in the sky. During the night, exactly the same thing happens, but it happens below the horizon. It happens out of sight. There is a sunrise, so to say, in the night world, and there's a sunset in the night world, except the sunrise we call our sunset, and the sunset there is our sunrise. And there is a zenith, we call it a nadir. It is the lowest point. It's the point of midnight. It's the point of, it's the point where something changes from a light that diminishes to a light that increases, and you cannot see where the turnaround is. Hidden from view. Nista. It's Esther at work. Right? So now you can see the night is a time without time. It's not the moment to produce. It's when the work stops, when we rest, as a result of what we did by the day, not as a preparation for the next day, right? More in a more metaphorical way, we contemplate the results of our actions that we do during the day by night. That's when we sit down and say, let's have a look. How did it go today? It's called in Jewish ethics the Cheshbon HaNefesh. And that's a Cheshbon HaNefesh It's a good discipline that before you go to bed, you go in your mind over what happened today, where did I achieve something, where did I make a progress, did I develop anywhere today, did I get somewhere? That's the nighttime. The nighttime is also the time that the fire rules, because the fire burns the korbanos. Where is this fire coming from? And the Pasha again makes it a point to say that Eish tukot al hamizbeach, the fire burns on the mizbeach. It's repeated a number of times, and there are mitzvahs connected to it. The fire needs to be kept burning all the time. The fire came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The fire, at the inauguration of the Mishkan, fire descended from heaven and lit the eitzim, lit the wood on the mizbeach, the firewood. Nevertheless, it's a mitzvah to add to the fire every day. The Kohen must put new firewood on the mizbeach, keep the fire going, because it's a joint enterprise. The initiative has come from God, but it's our task to keep the fire burning. Now, all the fire in the Beis HaMikdash comes from one place. That's halacha that we learned from this week's Seder. It all comes from the Mizbeach HaChitzon, from the Mizbeach that was in the Azor, that was not in the Heichel. It is not the incense altar, the Mizbeach HaZorov. It is the Mizbeach HaOlam, the copper altar outside. And all the fire was taken from this fire that was there for burning of the carbon. So to light the menorah, you have to take the fire from there. You bring the ketoris, you take the fire from there. And even the ketoris that the Kohen Gadol brings into the Kodesh Kodashim on Yom Kippur comes from this Mizbeach. Says the Rabbiner Hirsch. You know why? That's where you brought your Aulo. That's where you did your avodah. That's where you worked to lift up your earthly life and dedicate it to the service of the Almighty. But it was there during the day because it cannot be done by night. It's not a point of philosophy. It's not a point of contemplation. It's your starting point. Your starting point is that Mizbeach where you bring the Aulo. That's where it starts. Where you, through your efforts and through your aspirations, you strive upwards, and it's your job. Nobody else can do it. The Mizbeach, if the Mizbeach would not be a Mizbeach of burning our korbanos, that fire would not be able to light the menorah, which gives us the light of Torah. It would not be able to give fire for the ketoris, which is the highest form. It's almost non-physical, right? This smoke that goes up stands for the highest form of spirituality. That highest form of spirituality does not start with philosophizing. It starts on the Mizbeach. It starts with the avodah. It starts with the job that was being done outside in the Azor. So I think if you look at the Seder Korbanos from this point of view, you have somehow a handle on how to navigate this landscape of the animal service, which, let's be honest, is very difficult for us to understand. But it's our job to understand it. That's the korban that we bring on the Mizbeach of our own reason. So, until there, wish you a good week, wish you a good Shabbos.